At Hamilton Ridge High School, tucked away in a quiet corner of rural Pennsylvania, a shocking announcement rippled through the halls. President Donald J. Trump would be visiting their school as part of a youth journalism initiative. The moment. The news broke, students froze in disbelief. Teachers exchanged wide-eyed glances. And in the last row of Mrs. Caldwell's journalism class sat 17-year-old Isla Monroe, quiet, observant, and often overlooked. Isla Monroe wasn't the standout student. She didn't have the highest grades or the biggest personality, but her writing carried something rare. Raw honesty wrapped in thoughtful curiosity. It wasn't flashy, but it lingered. Principal Keating made the next announcement during the morning assembly. One student will be selected to interview President Trump live during his visit. Submit your questions. We'll choose the most compelling one. Students scrambled to craft smart, bold, or politically charged questions. But Isla didn't rush. She wasn't trying to impress. She wanted clarity, understanding. Maybe, in some way, she wanted to be understood. That evening, she sat on her front porch, pen in hand as the sun dipped below the hills. Her father, a disabled former coal miner, was resting inside. Her mother had passed away 5 years prior. Isla stared at the single question she had written down. It wasn't political. It was personal. Maybe too personal. Still, she submitted it. By the next morning, she expected nothing. Her stomach twisted at the thought of classmates mocking her for being too emotional. By lunch, the buzz had started. Whispers flew across the cafeteria. "Did you hear? Isla got picked." Wait. Her? Even she could hardly believe it until Mrs. Caldwell confirmed it with a proud nod. Your question was honest. That's what made it powerful. Some classmates looked at her differently now, some with admiration, others in disbelief, and home. Her father raised an eyebrow at the news report. You're interviewing who? Isla smiled shyly. The president. They liked my question. He chuckled through a wheeze. Just don't let anyone twist your words. Remember who you are. The day of the visit arrived in a blur of security checkpoints, reporters, and flashing cameras. Secret Service agents filled the halls like a swarm. Isla was handed a simple black dress, her hair lightly styled, a microphone clipped to her collar. She rehearsed her question over and over until she could say it in her sleep. Then came the call. The president has arrived. Backstage, she could hear the crowd erupting. It felt unreal until she saw him, taller than she'd imagined, waving confidently as he entered the packed auditorium. Reporters lined the back wall. Phones flashed. President Trump addressed the students with energy. I'm here because your voices matter. You are the future of America, and I want to hear what you have to say. Then he turned toward her. Our first student journalist today is Isla Monroe. Isla rose, her heart pounding. She walked onto the stage with trembling hands, blocking out the cameras and lights. In her mind, all she saw was her father's weary face. Trump extended his hand. Nice to meet you, Isla. She shook it with cold, nervous fingers. Ready? He asked. She nodded. The room went still. She clutched the microphone and, with a soft but steady voice, asked, Mr. President, when was the last time you felt truly powerless? A hush swept over the auditorium. The question landed like a thunderclap. Trump blinked, caught off guard. She hadn't asked about policies or politics. She had asked something human. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he stepped back from the podium, gripped its sides, and let out a breath. "You know," he said slowly, "that's not the question I was expecting." A quiet murmur moved through the audience. "When my younger brother Fred died of alcoholism," he continued, "I was in my 20s, full of ambition. I tried everything to help him, but nothing worked. I begged him to stop. I couldn't save him." He paused. "I've never forgotten what it felt like, being powerful in the world, but powerless in that moment." The room stayed silent. Even Isa hadn't expected such vulnerability. "People see the suits, the speeches, the planes," Trump went on. "But we all carry pain that never makes the news." He looked at Isa. "Thank you for that question. It matters more than you know." Isa blinked rapidly, trying to keep her composure. She hadn't meant to rattle him, but she had hoped to see something real. And in that moment, something shifted in the room. By the end of the assembly, she thought it was over. A strange moment in an already surreal day. But the world had other plans. Within hours, video clips of her question and his answer flooded social media. Headlines popped up. "Teen journalist stuns Trump with one unexpected question." People applauded her courage. Finally, a real question. She made him open up. "I've never seen this side of him." News anchors analyzed it. Talk shows played it. Even Trump posted the video himself, writing, "This young lady asked the toughest question I've faced in years. I'm thankful for it." Isa could hardly believe it. Her inbox overflowed. Interview requests, letters, messages from strangers across the country. But at home, everything remained unchanged. She sat beside her father on the couch as the footage replayed on TV. He didn't speak right away. Then he whispered, "You asked that for yourself, didn't you?" She nodded. "I know what powerless feels like, too," he added. They sat in silence, sharing something unspoken. 2 days later, a cream-colored envelope arrived in the mail. It was sealed with a golden crest. Her father handed it to her. "This came today." Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Isla, thank you for your bravery and your question. I'd like to invite you and your father to the White House next week. Not for an interview, just a conversation. Donald J. Trump." She stared at the letter, hands shaking. "Is this real?" she asked. Jack smiled. "We should go." "You sure you're up for it?" "I'll need help with the stairs," he joked. "But I want to see what they serve for lunch." The following days were a blur. Packing, press calls, disbelief. Their town watched with pride. Mrs. Caldwell teared up in class. Her classmates began calling her the girl who made Trump pause. But to Isa, she was still just herself. And deep down, something told her, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The day they stepped through the White House gates felt like a dream. Security checks, escorted hallways, camera flashes. An aide led them to a sunlit room. "Wait here. He'll be with you shortly." Jack sat, adjusting his old flannel shirt. "Reckon I'm underdressed," he muttered. Isa smiled. "We're not here to impress anyone." Moments later, President Trump entered. No cameras, no media, just him and a few quiet staffers. He shook Jack's hand firmly, then turned to Isa. Glad you came. They sat in a circle. No podiums, no script, just real conversation. He asked her, "How did you come up with that question?" Isa looked down. "Because I know what powerless feels like. Watching my dad in pain. Watching my mom fade in the hospital. I just wanted to know if someone like you ever felt that." Trump was silent for a moment. "That's a powerful kind of honesty," he said. For the next hour, they didn't talk about policy. They talked about loss, courage, and the need to be heard. Before leaving, Trump walked to a cabinet and pulled out a photo. "This is my brother Fred," he said, handing it to Isa. "He was brilliant, but he had demons." Jack studied the photo, his expression softening. "I wish I'd done more," Trump continued. "Some battles, they're inside." He sat back. "People who look the strongest often carry the heaviest silence." Isa nodded. "Is that why you act so tough?" Trump blinked, then said softly, "Partly. I built walls. I never wanted to feel helpless again." Jack spoke then. "My daughter didn't build walls. She asked a question." Trump smiled. "She asked the right one." He gently folded the photo and placed it back in the drawer. "You reminded me there's value in vulnerability, even in this job." Back home, life slowly returned to normal. The media faded, but Isa wasn't the same. She walked with more purpose, not for fame, but for truth. One morning, she found her father reading a letter from a teenage girl in Texas. "She said you made her feel seen," he told her. "She wants to ask questions, too." More letters came, emails from students, teachers, grieving parents, recovering addicts. Each message echoed the same sentiment. "Thank you for asking what we couldn't." Isa began writing back. She didn't feel like a hero, but she felt useful, and sometimes that was better. One afternoon, Mrs. Caldwell called her in after class. She handed her a box wrapped in floral paper. Inside was a heavy, leather-bound notebook. "I was saving this for the right student," she said. "Now I know who it's for." On the first page, she had written, "For Isla Monroe, who reminded the world that the hardest questions are the ones worth asking." Isa clutched the notebook like it was made of gold. That night, she wrote her first entry. "Power isn't about how loudly you speak. It's about how deeply you listen." Weeks later, another envelope arrived with the presidential seal.